Hello everybody and welcome back to Forgotten Hope 2. Today something special is happening. I'm playing a tourist on the latest map of Forgotten Hope 2, which of course means I need some tour guides here. And for that reason, one of the developers and a fellow content creator is joining me. Hello there, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm fine here too.
Before we get into the main subject, I'm curious, how did you guys get into the Battlefield franchise and later then into Forgotten Hope?
So for myself, I started with Battlefield 1942 as I was a little kid, so I followed the series, etc. And I already played the Forgotten Hope 1 mod for Battlefield 1942, so Battlefield 2 mod Forgotten Hope 2 was kind of obvious to take. And we had some modding project back in the days, and I was brought back to Cole, and now I'm an active developer. And I'm doing some maps, statics, and also player modeling. And I did also a few weapons, but I'm mostly doing statics for the game.
And in real life, you're also in the IT sector, or do you think something completely else?
Oh no, I have a formation in architecture. At the moment, I'm not an architect, but that's my career project.
Okay, so this is totally a hobby for you here.
Yeah, of course.
But for making statics, it's real nice to have an architect in the team.
It's very special in the gaming world. I never heard about an architect in development. It's really nice.
Yeah, I'm not the only one in the team. We have also Ashton, who is a Norwegian, who is an architect too.
Very unique here. And what about you, Slayer?
Well, I also started out with Battlefield 1942. I was actually looking for a game where I could fly World War II planes, and then at a LAN party, someone showed me the demo of Battlefield 1942, and I was immediately hooked and started playing it competitively and joined a clan. And then when Battlefield 2 came out, the clan moved on to Battlefield 2, so I also started playing that. I also played Forgotten Hope for Battlefield 1942 already, and after I started playing Battlefield 2, it took me quite a while to find out that Forgotten Hope 2 had moved on to Battlefield 2 as well. So at the beginning of Forgotten Hope 2, I wasn't there at the 2.0 times, but I joined when 2.1 came out, and shortly after I became a tester. We had a pretty big team of testers back then, and that has developed into a different state now, because testing is more individually now, and because we don't have a large team of testers anymore, we do events like with this map to see how it plays out with bigger player numbers. And after quite some time of just testing stuff, I also started to make videos about Forgotten Hope 2 to promote the game on YouTube. And there was another developer, TS Forever. He was already doing it, and I usually played together with him. And then at some point, I was like, maybe I can try to record some videos myself too. So I mostly make gameplay videos, but also some promotional material and some historical background videos that are explaining where the maps take place in real life and what battle, etc. And in real life, I'm a history teacher, so that's why I bring some of my historical background into the game. Because as a teacher, you are more a generalist. There are some specialists in the team that know way more about certain weaponry or stuff like that than me.
Stupid question here. Is it a mandatory subject to play the mods in your class?
No, it's not.
Sadly.
But it is a fact that I tell the kids a bit more about World War II than the average history teacher, I guess.
I can understand. You mentioned events. What can I understand under that term? Is it just your release schedule, or is there more behind it?
Now that's more behind it. When we do a release like 2.6, we really give one or two or three maps to the players with toys, new factions, etc. Here we have maps that are in a good shape already, but they lack stuff like custom statics, custom player models, or polishing. We put a lot of time polishing the maps, etc. And so we are with maps or with stuff that are not finished as we want, but that can be played. And that's the important part for us. It's that players can also enjoy what we have in our modding drawers. We have a lot of stuff that players don't know about, and we want them to discover it a tad, bring some hype, but also help us polishing the stuff. So we are just doing a 1 week event where we drop the 4 maps that we will see in the video. And after the event, we will stop it. The map won't be played on the regular server, and we will keep tweaking them like we did. So, for example, we have 2 maps in this event that were already played in September that will be played again in this event.
Okay, and I guess this is also your hardcore testing phase where you play with a full server and see how the balancing is working.
Yeah, we didn't do that in the past, but I think that's a good thing because that brings player also in the development process. In the past, developer used to have a lot of secrecy about the projects, etc., to have a big, wow effect when you drop the stuff, when you announce it. The issue is that big secrecy means that players don't know what you do and think that you are doing nothing, actually. And that's really not the case.
Yeah, I really prefer that way, because if there's too much secrecy, you have the problem that sometimes a player base get bored and they will leave your community. It's always a risk, of course.
Yeah, sure. But the opposite is not good too, because if we show to the player the vast amount of projects we have right now, they will be hyper hyped, but some of those projects will be scrapped, abandoned, etc., or totally reworked, and it will take times like years to be finished. And it's kind of a disappointment for them because they have seen one or two screenshots, and then they are waiting like 1 year to have the map. So it has to be subtle,
Definitely, there is a very fine balancing aspect on that subject. But in general, I think the player base needs to get sometimes the possibility to look behind the scenes, like we're doing basically here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, then yeah, I would say let's show what this event is about. On what map are we currently?
Right now we are on Bir Hakeim, which is a map that is somewhat already in the game. We have a map named Gazala, where one flag is called Bir Hakeim. Gazala, the Gazala line was a defensive line set by the British in May 1942 to prevent Rommel from attacking Tobruk and Egypt. And at the south of the Gazala line was this place, so Bir Hakeim, which was really a remote desertic place with an old Turkish fort and a dry well. And the British High Command put the Free French here. So the first DFL, so Division Française Libre, which was seen at the time like a somewhat second-rate unit, even if it was some experienced soldiers in there. You have, for example, legionnaires from France who participated in the Norwegian campaign, in the exporter operation, so taking up Syria and Lebanon, etc. You also had a lot of soldiers from all around the world, so in Africa, Pacific, etc. So from all the French Empire, and it was seen as a place where the Germans wouldn't attack. They would attack frontally, which they did. But Rommel attacked frontally the whole line, but put all his best units to outflank the line south of Bir Hakeim, so just south here, outflank the place, get into the British rear, and surround this place. He wanted to do it rather quickly, but it was one of the places that all the they were supposed to hold like 2 days, but they hold like 2 weeks, and they were really outnumbered here. And in the end, when the British command said, "Well, it's untenable, you have to escape," they managed to escape by night, and a large amount of the French forces managed to escape. They had a lot of losses during the escape, but the vast majority of the soldiers got back to British lines.
So it wasn't a total loss here.
Oh, no. It's a tactical loss for the French, a tactical win for the German, because in the end they took the place and they took Tobruk, etc. But it's a strategic win for the French and the British forces, because by pinning Rommel and a vast amount of forces here, they lengthened the supplies. They prevented the Germans to attack the remnants of the Commonwealth forces going back to Egypt, etc. So they really gained time here by holding there, and it is said that the weeks spent here helped the regroupment and the defense at El Alamein. So the place was in real life 16 kilometers square, so 4x4. Surrounded by mine swamps and minefields and barbed wires. In the game, of course it's short, so we don't have a map that huge. So everything is scaled, but we try to represent the what a box in the desert is, with the trenches, the tents, the firing position, the artillery, etc. So it's a desert, but it's a desert mess.
And I guess you used a lot of original pictures from that time period. And how was the research process in general?
That's a project that actually come from FH 2.0 that was started as a side project by some French people. Given Forgotten Hope 2.0 was set in the desert, so you had Tobruk, etc. It was seen as an easy way to implement the Free French forces. But the project, was never finished, And so with Sputnik Fighter, so the other mapper of the map, we took back the project like 2 years ago. We redo it from scratch, the gameplay, etc. Looked a lot of pictures and reports. One issue on this battle is that there is not a lot of pictures, of course, and in some of the pictures you have reenactment by the soldiers, propaganda reenactment, which was done in 1943. So the soldier from the first DFL went back to the scene in 1943 and took back some pictures also.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit strange and difficult.
And also, there is no Google Maps in Libyan desert.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There is no Google Map, no Google Street View, so that's a
problem.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's show me around.
Yeah, for research, there's also there in the Discord server that we are having with the developer team and the testers. There's a channel for each map. So if somebody else who is not actually doing the research stumbles upon something, then he can just easily share it within the channel. So a picture or a battle report or a report about the losses. And then, that way the mappers gather a lot of information about the battle.
So one of the most iconic place in the battle is this old Turkish fort. So there is some picture of it, but really a few. The most seen building is this one. It's already in FH2 and in the Gazala map I mentioned before. And behind it is a real fort, because some people thought this is a fort, but of course it's not. It's just a building. Well, for now it's just made from placeholders. So we took some statics from maps like Jarabub, for example, or Tunis, and put the area in what would be the general shape of the place. But if the map is well liked and we decide to really put effort in finishing it, there will be change here. Of course, a lot of changes.
It already looks very nice.
And also, what we have special for this event is a new toy. Well, which is somewhat new, but somewhat old already. It's the French gun, the French 75mm gun, but made by the American with a special gun mount. And the Free French used to cut the shield and strap a lot of things, to have a low silhouette on it. And you can see a lot of those guns in pictures and reports. The armament and the weapons for the French in this battle is a mix of British and French weapon. So you will find a lot of French 75, French 25mm guns. There was also French 47mm gun. You have a lot of French rifles, French machine guns, etc. So, for example, a MAS 36, like the one you're holding right now. But you will also find some British stuff, like, for example, the uniforms we are wearing right now. Here we are with the let's say the light desertic British soldier with French patches, etc. But there is also the battle dress. I will show you. Wait. I'm coming.
I didn't want to watch you changing.
Yeah, so there is the French army is somewhat eclectic. You have a lot of different stuff from all around the world. Sorry. So here I'm a North African in battle dress with a French light machine gun. And yeah, so you will find this mix, while the opposite team, the German, are actually German and Italian troops. So you have, for example, the Division Ariete, etc. And so you have really people coming from all around the world in this map.
I'm always surprised of the level of detail you guys doing. It's such a nice change, and I love it.
Yeah, this field kitchen, it's a pretty recent static, and you can see that it's specially made for the French.
That was the first thing I noticed.
With the bouillon on it. And French warning on the side to not blow it up.
Yeah, of course, here it's in 1940 configuration. We actually don't know if the French actually had some French kitchen. I don't know. But we thought that it would be a nice detail, to point out that that's not really British stuff. You have a mix. The the vehicles, for most of them are British. For example, you have Brent Carries, Bedfords, etc.
Really, really nice.
Yeah, and then, but I guess that's because the French had to leave most of their equipment behind when the Free French moved to England through Dunkirk.
Yeah,
right?
but they managed to take some stuff in Syria and Lebanon, and you have to remember that this unit went through 1941 and 1942 with the stuff from 1940. So, for example, the last French tanks they kept from Norway went to Gabon, then to Lebanon, and in Lebanon, well, they they were wrecked. It was too much for them already. So at that time, the unit which had the H-39 in Norway, Gabon, Lebanon, was actually re-equipped with Crusaders, but they were not in this battle at the moment. I think they were training on the tanks, but I may be wrong on this assertion.
So Darius, how much time are you planning to spend on each map in the video?
I don't have a real plan.
Okay.
So if you want to show every detail, that's fine with me. But if you say we have the most important items checked, we can move on.
Yeah, I think we can move to another map if we want.
Yeah, okay, guys. We are now on Hill 203. But in which country are we?
We are in the Soviet Union because this is part of the map Operation Little Saturn. And I guess most people will not say, Operation Little Saturn. But when I say the Battle of Stalingrad, then I guess most people will know what I'm talking about. So Operation Little Saturn is an attack by the Soviets, and it's a part of the larger Battle of Stalingrad because it has nothing to do with the famous urban warfare that was happening between August and November, December. But it has more to do with the outskirts of the Battle of Stalingrad because, of course, the Germans were in the town and they had to protect their flanks. And on the flanks, there were the Romanian armies. And they had several allies fighting with them in the Soviet Union. Usually people think about the Germans fighting against the Red Army, but there were Romanians, Italians, Hungarians, Germans, of course, Spaniards even with the Blue Division, and lots of volunteers from occupied countries that joined the Waffen-SS. And so it was actually a multinational army fighting on the Eastern Front. And Operation Little Saturn is, it's part of the Battle of Stalingrad, and it's part of the final phase, actually.
So time-wise, we're a little bit at the end of the Battle of Stalingrad.
Yeah, well, in the second half at least. Yeah, it's not really at the ultimate weeks. It's halfway through December, and the battle that is portrayed in Little Saturn lasted 3 days on this location. But the battle for Stalingrad had already raged for several months, of course. The Germans were surrounded in the city, as well most people will know. And that operation was called Operation Uranus, also a planet just like Saturn. And that was the completion of the entrapment of the German army in Stalingrad. And then the Germans tried to counterattack in Operation Winter Storm, or Wintergewitter in German. And when that one had failed, then there was a new plan by Stavka in the Soviet Union to drive back the Germans and totally obliterate any remaining Axis forces in the city and in the surroundings. And that was called Operation Saturn. The ultimate goal of Operation Saturn was to take back Rostov-on-Don, which is almost 500 kilometers to the west of Stalingrad. So it was a very ambitious plan. And they had to change the plan because the estimates that were done by the Soviet intelligence were wrong. They thought there were about 80,000 Germans left in Stalingrad, but in reality there were about 250,000 troops left. So they scaled down the operation, and that's why it's called Operation Little Saturn. And they launched it on the 16th of December 1942. And the Soviets were attacking the Italians, which we are being portrayed as now. It was the Italian 8th Army, which was part of the Eastern Front's Italian Infantry Army, which was called Armir. And they were with 130,000 strong, but they got encircled by the Soviets. Then the Germans sent in support. And it's portrayed on the map by having both Italian vehicles and German vehicles, because the 6th Panzer Division supported the defending Italians. But, well, the Italians were really in a tight spot because they were heavily outnumbered. There were about 9 times as many Soviet soldiers as there were Italian defenders. So it was actually more of a delaying action than that they could actually stop the Red Army here. And the defensive aspect of the battle is portrayed in the map by these bunkers over here. As you can see, there are lots of trenches and little bunkers and defensive positions. And like on the other maps, there are some placeholders, like this AA gun. The skin is not really an Eastern Front skin, for example. And here we have AT position with more bunkers with supplies and MGs. And this is actually a German AT gun. This one is also on Operation Mars. And, well, the Soviets are coming from that direction over there. So the defenders will have to look for any movement in the forest or in the open field to the left.
You were talking about some desert placeholders, but you have to know that some of the vehicles the Italian used here were actually in desert tone during the battle. So some of the tanks they had, they were just like desert beige, you know, not really fitting to this part of the world.
It's almost a bit like the Americans in the Battle of the Bulge that didn't have winter uniforms.
And so this map was already played in the September last time. There was some improvement on the map. So, for example, there was some issue with the gameplay on this map. There were not enough tickets for the attackers, for example. And in the meantime, Layer the Mapper also progressed in his static development and made some new statics. So, for example, in the town, he started to do a new church, which is close to what was in real life in this town. So you can see in the background the church from Gaduccie. I don't know how to pronounce this town.
Yeah, Gaduccie. Yeah, so if some of the people who are watching this video, if they played in the Eastern Front event, they will recognize a lot of stuff, like the trenches, but they will notice that the church, well, it had a spire before, and now it has domes. So that's a pretty iconic difference.
And also, I think Layer ends the defenses by adding barbed wires. I'm not sure if they were there the last time, etc. So a lot of polishing. Also, He added some smaller layers. So in FH2 we have the regular layer, so for 100 player, and we have two smaller layers, which are usually depicting either smaller part of the map or some parts that are not depicted on the map right now. So for example, the 32 layer is actually portrayed in the out of bounds area east on the minimap, and the 16 player is a fight around hill 203 where we were at the beginning of the review of the map in a foggy situation. So I'm not spoiling anything, but you will see the atmosphere on this layer is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the AT guns were also the North African ones, and the Italian ones. I mean,
we also had some progress on research on this map. So we have seen that, for example, the Italians had more German stuff than we expected. So that's why we have more Pack 40 than we are previously. And if I remember correctly, there were also a Stug detachment in this area, but I'm not sure if it's one of them.
The Stugs were already on the map in the Eastern Front event.
Ah, okay, perfect.
And I guess that's to portray that support of 6th Panzer.
A general question for you guys, you experts. I always wondered how the different nations on the German side communicated. Was there just one guy in the company who spoke German, or how was this done? How could the Italians speak to the Germans?
I think that most of the time the armies were operating with their own nationality. So you had a Romanian army, and they were talking in Romanian, of course, and the orders were given in Romanian. And the communication between the armies was in German. So just like there were military attachés in peacetime and in wartime with different armies to make the really large-scale communication, I guess that the Italians had a guy that was relaying all German orders and translating them when necessary. And same for the Hungarians and the Romanians, etc. And most of the voluntary units that were with the Waffen-SS, they were already trained in German. So they usually spoke German at a level which was enough for combat.
And also you have to note that the intent between each army and each nationality wasn't always great. So, for example, the Italians were watched a bit with disdain by the Germans in Libya, for example, in like on the last map, or here. The Germans looked at Romanian, Hungarians, and Italians as
second rate.
Yeah, second grade stuff. This is why they put it on their flanks while attacking Stalingrad, because they put all their effort there on taking the town. And this is why also the Russians managed to really breach and encircle the Germans at Stalingrad, because they really feel the Italians, Hungarians, the Romanians on large fronts, and they were ill-equipped with anti-tank guns, tanks, etc. So it was easy for the Russians to crush those armies, even if they put a fight. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, actually, the name of the Italians for the Germans was actually a bit rehabilitated in this battle, because they were outnumbered so heavily, but they still held out for a few days. And this heroic stance against this behemoth of the Red Army was actually much appreciated by the Germans, a lot more than the Italian efforts in the North African desert.
Yeah, I totally can see that every battle changed the view of the other side a little bit. And the Allied side, of course.
Yeah, the troops that were sent from Italy to the Soviet Union were also not they were not really well adapted to the environment that they were going to fight in, because most of the troops that were sent to the Eastern Front were mountaineers. And maybe it was because they were thinking about having the mountaineers fight in the Caucasus Mountains, but they were mostly used in the open steppes and the vast plains, and in which mountaineers don't have any extra added value. So there were also some decisions made on a higher level, which made the Italians not perform at their best.
I totally see, yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Now back to the map and the church.
Oh, but perhaps we can end on this talk. It was nice.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And move to a new map.
Okay.
There's no upstairs in this church.
There is.
Oh, okay. Then I haven't found it yet.
you can climb in the tower.
Okay, cool.
I always wondered, where did you guys find the music for the loading screen? Is it always a fit for the map, or is it something else?
It usually fits to the map, especially in the newer maps, but in some older maps there's music. For example, we have a map with the Battlefield 1942 theme, because we have had some developers that were doing such good work that they were hired by bigger companies like Electronic Arts, and they managed to let us have permission to use that music.
And is it very hard for you guys to find new pictures, new songs to add to the whole thing, or is there already such a big archive that it's very easy?
Well, on the latest maps, I have seen a bit more of the process of picking music, for example. And there usually are several suggestions. So people are posting titles of songs, and then the mapper gets to pick. So you will just listen, and if it's because it also has to be of a certain length, because the music repeats itself after a while, because people who will load in fast will only hear a short part of the music, and people who take quite a while to load in because of connection, they can listen to a longer part, but preferably not in a way that they have to listen to it 3 times or something. So there's a default length of the music. I think it's 2 minutes, and that means that if you load the map, you usually will not hear more than one run with the music.
In general, I so like the idea of having a special selection of music for the loading screen. It's so rare in games that you are basically really entertained during the loading process.
Yeah, the thing is that Pogostje 2 has system specifications which are a lot lower than most modern games, of course. So we have a lot of players in various parts of the world where most people have systems that are, or connections that are not as fast as most people in Europe or the States are used to.
Okay, another winter map.
Yeah.
Where are we this time?
Well, the map is called Pogostje, and that's a tiny town in Russia again. And this is part of, well, the Operation Little Saturn is part of the bigger battle for Stalingrad, and this one is part of the bigger battle of Leningrad. And of course, the biggest difference between Stalingrad and Leningrad is that Leningrad was encircled by the Germans and the population was besieged and starved. This is a little bit south of Lake Ladoga, which the Soviets used in wintertime to bring convoys of trucks towards Leningrad over the frozen lake in order to supply them with food and other stuff they needed. And like the Germans attempted to break through the encirclement of the Red Army at Stalingrad in Winter Storm, the Soviets also tried to break through the encirclement of the Germans at Leningrad. And the battles that take place in these parts are part of those attempts. And there are it's the Volkhov Front, and the Soviet Union was trying to free Leningrad, of course, by pushing into the encirclement. And at first they succeeded, but they couldn't exploit their small breakthrough they had. So overall, the encirclement of the Germans wasn't broken by this battle. This entire operation was had several names. The most used one is the U-1, the offensive. And the thing with the battle is that the Germans that were known for their pincer movements while they were attacking in Operation Barbarossa, they used these pincer movements also defensively on this front. Not really at this area, because in Pogostje the breakthrough was rather small, but further south at Chudovo, there was between Novgorod and Chudovo, there was a larger breakthrough by two armies, and that breakthrough got pincered off defensively. So the forward soldiers were cut off from their rear units, and that way the Germans dealt with that breakthrough. And at Pogostje, there was only one army, the 54th Army, that was breaking through, but it didn't really get very far. And where we are right now is we are on a defensive position. You can see the trenches, and you can also see on several MG positions, and in the distance you can see all these things that are stuck in the snow vertically. They are tank obstacles, and they have barbed wire around them. And this position has several fortifications with mortar positions and bunkers, like for example this one. And they all have an MG that will look into the direction of where the Russians will come from. And as you can see, the vision is pretty okay, but it's not unlimited because of the forest. So as a defender, you'll really have to look for movement between the trees. And then the MG also has a limited arc, of course. And if you look at the mini map, you can see this red piece on the map, which is a minefield designated by the little skull signals over there, which means that tanks can't go up here. So they have to go around the minefield, either towards the southeast or towards the northwest. And if you open the map, you can see that there's an opening at the flag, which is called Compagnie Hansen. And there's a flag called Pogostje, where there's a larger opening for tanks. Of course, these openings are defended by AT guns. And the 54th Army will have to break through at either one of these or both of these points in order to be able to proceed. And although they did break through, the success was really short-lived, and the Germans could regroup and push back and hold their grip onto Leningrad. So the Soviets get to attack with a bunch of tanks, and they because they have only a few locations where they can break through, the Germans know where to look. But in the meantime, of course, the infantry can attack here and just go over the defensive position, which is, by the way, this was actually a railway embankment, which froze up in the wintertime, and the positions were dug in by the Germans. And not only on this side, but also on their own side, there are several bunkers. For example, this one here, which they probably used for shelter, because this has no view outside, but soldiers could just sit here and rest a little. And of course, they were standing guard and keeping watch, and they had to alternate. So they could sit here and sleep a little and eat something, and then go stand guard again after a while. When the Soviets do break through, they'll have to capture the first line, so the first 3 flags along this embankment, and then their reinforcements will spawn at the embankment, so they don't have to drive all the way from the base again. And they will have to take the second line, which is river crossing and Waldlager, which just means forest encampment. And then after they take those, then they can push towards Minyagolowo, which is the final flag of this map.
I really like the swampy forest atmosphere on this map. The snow, it's really cool. You have some brown patches, some white vastness, and the trees. That's really cool to see. And then pops out a bunker, pops out a little house or a little shelter.
It definitely mixes up a little bit the monotone white tone.
Yeah.
With the different colors here. Yeah, definitely true. That's nice.
And for infantry, the camouflage actually works pretty well in this forest. And for tanks, the challenge is, the choice is actually, do I use the roads? And the positive side of that is that you can travel pretty fast. But the downside of it is that you'll get bombed easily by the Stuka. And the other option you have is to drive through the forest, which will keep you pretty safe from the Stuka, because it's very hard to see driving tanks through the forest. But the travel will be really slow, and that's a drawback by itself, but it will also make the tank an easier target for infantry.
And as on Little Saturn, the map was also improved given the various feedback on the players. So, for example, the ticket counts, the spawns, etc. The way first line flag capture, if I recall correctly. Some assets repartition. So yeah, it will play a bit differently from the last time, given the feedback.
Yeah, for example, one thing I know that got changed is the position of the German planes. Because if you open the map, you will see that the planes are pointing upwards, and they were pointing to the left first. So if you were taking off, you first had to make a turn in order to take off normally. Otherwise, you would just crash into the forest. And now they are turned into the correct takeoff direction already. So that's a bit of a small quality of life improvement.
Which also is necessary for every game and every mod, I would say.
Yeah, if there's stuff that people are complaining about after playing a map, then you'll have to check if you can do something about it. And most of the time, it's not a really big issue. Sometimes it is, because then you really have to change certain aspects of the mod in order to meet a complaint. But most feedback is based on this is too easy, this is too hard, and taking off as a German pilot was too hard, so that was easily fixed by just repositioning the aircraft. And this map was also put on a channel in July 2022. So just like Little Saturn, it's been in the beta for almost a year, and there are still people posting extra information about this battle in the channel. So, for example, recently somebody added some information about a very unusual battery that was equipped with 105 millimeter self-propelled howitzers on chassis of English captured tanks, and it was a unique battery in the German army.
There were also KV2 on this battle. So yeah, a lot of unique assets are showing for this scenario. That's nice.
It's totally nice. Like I said, the level of detail, it amazes me every time.
Yeah, it makes some people in the team really happy if a report is found of some super strange vehicles like the self-propelled guns I just mentioned, because then they're like, oh wow, we can add it to the mod, and it will look super strange and special, and then it's funny.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah,
Nice.
with
Yes.
arrow keys.
You can do that.
Because when you are lower, then you are less of a target, of course. But when you are higher, it's easier to hit certain targets. So
Really, really nice.
German winter skins are the same as on Operation Mars.
Yeah, and they have the distinctive red armband. I don't think it was used in the theater. The red armband for the Germans.
I would guess it wasn't, but I'm not 100% certain. But I guess that if there's going to be maybe in the long term when this map is already in, that there will be someone who says, "Hey, I'm going to make the correct uniform," and then it will be put on here. Just like we have had placeholders in the mod for quite some time. When the first desert maps came out, the British were using the number 4 rifle, and later the Mark III SMLE was introduced, so the number 4 got replaced on British desert maps.
And for example, you also had the Fallschirmjägers on Crete was really a late addition compared to the implementation of the map.
Yeah. At first you were just fighting as the Wehrmacht there, or as the Gebirgsjäger, and later the Fallschirmjäger were added. Also, when the Italians got added on several maps, the Germans disappeared because the battle had been between British and Germans, for example, on Bardia, and now it's between Anzacs and Italians. So whenever something new is being made and it works, it gets implemented in maps where it's fitting, and then other stuff gets removed. And sometimes the community is not really happy about the removal of certain stuff, like semi-automatic rifles for the Germans, the Gewehr 43, for example. And they really liked that rifle, but it was unhistorical in several maps, so it got replaced. And community will they will have to do a little getting used to, but then after a while it's normal again, so it's no problem anymore.
But I really like that there's a constant update process of all the different maps and assets. If you have something new, you try it. I like it, and yeah, it's important for a project like this, I also would say.
Yeah, it's also something that while new content is usually what people like best because it's totally new and they get new toys to play with in the shape of a new vehicle or a new weapon. But updating older maps also shows that the team is taking care of these older maps and they don't just forget about them and say, well, this map has been in the mod for 10 years now, we're not going to change it anymore now. Because every time that something pops up, it gets added. It can get added to an older map if it's fitting.
And also we have more than 50 maps in the mod already, and just tweaking them helps Prever to not be bored by the maps and their defaults. For example, in 2.6 we edited Totalize with new toys, etc. And people, I think, are enjoying more the maps with the Sturmpanzer 4, etc. than before.
Okay, guys, sadly, because of a technical issue, we can't be on the same server, but everyone from us is on a local version, so we are seeing the same thing. At the moment, I'm looking directly at the church, at the cafe.
Yeah, so we are on a new map, Merdorp, which take place in 1940. So in May 1940, Merdorp is a small village west of Hanut, and it's part of a large battle where the French best units will go ahead to meet the German spirit invading their low country, so Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And so we will have here the 3 DLCs and the 4th Panzer clashing around the small hamlets and towns where the French put some quick defenses because, well, they had to go from France to Belgium here and to do it as fast as possible to try to stop the German from progressing into Belgium. So it's really a delaying action there, and one of the first major tank-to-tank engagements in Second World War. So, for example, here we would have famous tank like the Saumur S45 for the French, fighting against Panzer III and Panzer IV. And the advantage for the Germans is that they managed to gain ground, to progress into Belgium. And so their loss in tanks were not a technical loss because they managed to take back the wrecks or repair it, while the French had to leave behind them their damaged vehicles or their wrecks. They couldn't repair, So as the battle develops, the German will keep momentum, while the French will start to lose forces. Also, the Germans used a lot of combined arms tactics, so with air support, artillery, infantry infiltration, and tank, while the French suffered a bit from coordination. I don't think there were any aerial support above Merdorp. In the map, we have set some planes, to fight off a bit the German fighters and bombers, but we will see how it goes in public. And so yeah, the map focus on the town with the large fields around. So there will be room for tank engagements and also room for infantry fighting, urban fighting, etc.
I guess it's always a very interesting time when you when you release a new map event pack and see how it works on the big servers.
Yeah, and we didn't do that in the past, and I think that's important that we do that because we have a lot of beta testers and contributors and developers which are developing maps on their own, and then we get like a lot of maps, but not finished maps, and we don't know where to put our efforts because we are doing it in our free time, and well, we don't have a lot of time, to develop stuff, and it takes time. By testing like that with public players, well, we can make the mapper progress on the map with feedback, and also decide if we want to put more effort on the map to finish it, to add new assets. Like for example, here you have no new tanks, no new skins for the tanks. There are some new statics though, made by Lair and Guino. And public testing helps to test those, see stuff. So for example, during the line mapping process, we have found some bugs, etc. Or while packing the map, for example, we have seen that there is some error in the archive that make us unable to play on the same server right now. But it's thanks to that we can progress.
Yeah, Guino is not only the guy who made the statics, but also this map. So
Yeah.
And what's nice about this map and also about the other French maps that were being released in 2.6 is that it's actually paying homage to the name of the mod, because in at first Forgotten Hope, the mod for Battlefield 1942 was made to portray the battles in the time of the war where the Axis seemed to go and win the war, hence the name Forgotten Hope. And that was because of the game, Battlefield 1942, was mostly focusing on battles in the second half of the war. And in Forgotten Hope 2, the first battles were in the North African desert. But now we also have these battles in 1940, actually going back a bit to the roots of Forgotten Hope that way.
I think in Battlefield 1942, the earliest map was Wake Island in terms of time period, and then they added the Battle of Britain map. But I think most of the maps started in 1942, 1942.
Yeah, they had a Tobruk map.
Yeah, also, yeah.
Which was a bit early as well, but most of the maps were later, like El Alamein and Stalingrad and Kursk, Berlin, D-Day, Kharkov. Yeah, so most maps were in the later part of the war.
That's really cool also because, while doing iconic places like, for example, Omaha Beach or Point York, it's really important because it brings players, and it's also a fit to try to model those places, represent them as we want, and to have good maps on them. Doing some remote places or unknown places, like here, for example, or in some previous patches, we have Motovsky Bay, which is on the Arctic Circle. It makes players and developers, of course, learn about stuff we would have never learned otherwise. Like I clearly didn't know that Russians and Germans were fighting somewhere in Karelia, in some places.
That's definitely true that this mod is teaching especially a younger audience, a lot of World War II.
Yeah, sometimes the teaching is also to counter a bit of pop culture. Like when we said Omaha Beach, actually the Battlefield 1942 map of Omaha Beach was, not really close to the real thing.
What? It felt perfectly real.
And there are several other games which portray Omaha Beach just as it portrayed in Hollywood movies. And well, most of these beach landings are not really realistic. So that's also there are some mappers that are really going for obscure locations because they want to show parts of the war that are unknown, like Bocquier said. But other maps are picked up to show how it actually was looking way back when. And it's funny because sometimes you get comments by players who say, "Hey, this is you did this wrong because I saw this movie and it totally looked different back in 1944," and that's. Those are always interesting conversations.
And also, I remember the time that I first played Port-en-Bessin, and I was thinking to myself, it looks like Wistram, because I've watched before, the Longest Day, and in the Longest Day they actually filmed the part on Wistram at Port-en-Bessin. And I've learned that way, so that was really surprising to me to discover that people in movies were not actually filming where the action took place, but they try to represent as much as possible places.
How many people are basically working on one map? Is it just one guy?
The mapper is one guy. And sometimes it's a cooperation, like on Bir Hakeim, it's a cooperation between Sputnik Fighter and Bocquier. But in most maps have one mapper, but sometimes a map is started by one mapper, and then he leaves the team, and then somebody else picks it up, works a bit on it, then stops because of lack of interest, or also leaving the team or whatever. And so there are also some maps in the mod that have 3, 4, or even more mappers, because and then that's all. That also means that the map has been in development for years, because there can be a large gap in between phases of development by the various mappers.
For example, the map I've released in 2.6 was Stone, but it was started by Snooks. And I was helped a lot by Stupfan to make the map something real, because I had really not a lot of knowledge in some technical aspects of doing a map, like overgrowth, undergrowth, surrounding terrain, etc. So a lot of I was missing a lot of details and stuff that. Thanks to God, I had Stupfan to help me with.
And apart from the mapper, there are also other guys working on the maps, because like we saw on Bir Hakeim, the player model is different from other maps. So somebody has to do the player model. And the gun that we showed has to be made. The skin has to be changed sometimes based on pictures from the time period. And sometimes, like we said before, if a map is finally put into the mod, then it's also useful to make houses and other buildings that are really typical for the region. Because at first there are some houses put on that we already have to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, well, then those typical houses will not be made, because it will be a wasted effort. But if the map is going to be in the mod, then it's useful, and it won't be a wasted effort to go that extra mile and make the typical house from that region to make the map more on its own. So, like that fortress that we saw on Bir Hakeim, it already looks pretty French because of the statics and the flags. But if it's going to be in, and there will be a real Bir Hakeim fortress, well, it will be unique, and there will be no other fortress in the mod like.
But we won't do it if the map is, shares no interest, or we don't want to put efforts on it because players don't want to see it, or because we lost interest in representing it. That's also what those kind of events are for. Is to also understand a bit better what the players want to see, and if they are following our progress or saying, perhaps you're making a mistake. We want maybe a bit more of that, etc. But players also have to remember that developers are doing what they want.
That's true, and it's also good, I would say. Not everything should be demanded by the community. Maybe a very stupid and naive question here. So there's basically only one poor soul who places every tree on these giant maps?
Yes, but there are also tools in which you can do it a bit more automated. But for example, if you want to make a large forest, you don't have to put every single tree by hand.
Okay.
But
yeah, you have a tool that automatize the trees and bushes. So you set the density, which type of trees of bushes you want to see. But if you do that in town, for example, you will have trees popping out of houses or other stuff, and so you have to put the trees one by one.
So every tree around the church is hand-picked.
Yeah, and also sometimes it's just aesthetic, but other times it's also gameplay objects. In terms that you can take cover behind it, you can hide behind it. So you have to think a bit as a mapper that you're not just depicting a place from a postal card. You are also trying to give a fighting environment for the players. And for example, you don't want a big bush in the middle of a flag zone where someone can hide and you can't see it.
Yeah, there's always the balancing aspect, of course.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to alter reality a bit to make the gameplay flow better.
Okay, guys.
Any other location?
Perhaps you moved, Sedaris, while we were talking?
I moved around the town a little bit, but I'm still at the same spawn location.
Yeah, perhaps we can spawn in on Saint-Joseph, Saint-Joseph, so you can see the fields around.
Yeah.
Okay, little suicide. Where shall I spawn?
Saint Joseph in the north.
Yep. Going there. 3 seconds. Okay, why did you choose this location as the close-off of this video?
Because you can see the vast fields for the tank battles, and I am sure player will enjoy, trying to find to hunt the enemy tanks. The tank balance is one cool subject on this map because you have the French medium tanks, the S-35, which is really a good tank for this time period. Biggest issue with that with it is the turret, which was not great, but we can't really depict it in game, and that will probably deal easily with the German Panzer III and Panzer IV. And in the meantime, you have the other light tanks for the French, which are nearly crap. They don't have they are well armored, but they have really not a gun for armored engagement. So you will have those kind of tanks which are good, but without great support, and in the opposite team, you will have somewhat more homogeneous force that can deal with infantry, with big shells or automatic guns, but also that can really deal damage to the enemy tanks.
And I don't know where you are at the moment, but if you look at the flag zone at Saint Joseph, you will see 2 AT guns. They are the blue dots on the map.
Yeah, I just was at one of those locations.
Yeah, because I'm at the northern one at the moment, and if you are in it and you look over the fields, you can see 2 tank wrecks in the distance.
Okay. Switching to the northern one. I'm here.
Yeah, just enter the gun.
Yeah, I see them.
And then if you zoom in, you can see a Panzer IV and a Panzer II wreck in the distance. And this is the distance where the Germans will appear. And it will be an interesting fight in open field. And there will be, well, there's always this myth about German tanks being the best tanks in World War II. But in France, they also met some tanks that were equally or even stronger than their tanks. And that's why the Germans really had to use these combined arms tactics with coordination between the Panzerdivisionen and the Air Force. So the Stuka was a really important asset in the invasion of France because they bombed several tanks and flipped them over or disabled them otherwise.
And if the maps ever progress, here you have 25mm guns for the French, which are already good at dealing damage to German tanks, but are, you know, they can pierce, but they are not dealing a large amount of damage. Though in real life they had the 47mm gun, which was really destroying German tanks at that time. They could pierce any German tank they could face.
So a little balancing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 47 mil is not in the mod yet.
No. It was in Forgotten Hope 1 though.
So if this map is going to be in a mod, probably somebody will make that gun at a certain point, and then these 25 mils will be replaced.
Well, then we can all look forward to a really nice release. I can't wait to play them on the real server.
Yeah, me too.
I would say basically this is the part of the video where I open the mic to you guys. Is there anything you would like to add? Anything we didn't touch?
Well, I think we talked a lot already.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really hope players will enjoy the maps and will see the effort we've put in putting some new maps and also already played maps into a better shape, so they can have fun during a weekend around place they never played before, or just 1 or 2 times.
And if players are going to play the maps and they want to actually help the development, then it would be really great if they would take notes, as in writing stuff down or typing it somewhere and then posting it towards the Discord channel that will be opened for feedback. And because sometimes players type feedback in the chat in the game, and although that feels like you are making a contribution, it gets also drowned in lots of other stuff. And it's really difficult to find back the feedback between all the chat messages. So please take notes and post them in Discord, because then the mapper can easily pick it up and implement it in the next version.
Thank you guys for joining me. It was really nice talking to you both.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, like I said, can't wait to play it. Okay, that's it for this video. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the game, and of course, play the game. Until next time.